Long after humans reached the stars, the galaxy had changed in many ways, but one thing remained the same. No species dared to enter the area that was called human space. It was not a law written by any council, but a rule followed by fear. Every race in the galaxy knew stories about what happened to those who tried to go there. But no one really knew the truth. They only knew that whoever crossed that invisible border never came back, and their ships were never found. At first, the other civilizations thought that humans were like any other young race full of ambition and dreams. When humanity first joined the interstellar community, they were seen as unpredictable but interesting. They were smaller, weaker, and had less advanced ships compared to the old and proud empires, but they had courage. They had something no one could measure: the will to survive and adapt faster than anyone else. In the early days, the Galactic Council had welcomed humanity with open arms, at least on the surface. But behind those smiles there was doubt and fear. Because humans came from what was called a death world, a planet so harsh and dangerous that most species would never survive a single day there. To them, it was almost impossible that a species from such a violent place could grow to build cities, reach space, and cross the stars. The first human ambassadors were treated with caution, and sometimes even insulted. But humans stayed calm. They learned, they observed, they listened, and in less than a century they had caught up with everyone else. Their technology improved. Their fleets grew and their colonies expanded faster than any other race had ever seen. And then came the Orion War. The Orion War was the moment everything changed. It started as a small border conflict between humans and an alien empire that thought they could take a few human colonies for themselves. They underestimated how humans would react. At first, the Galactic Council tried to stop it, but soon realized it was too late. The humans fought back harder than anyone expected, and they did not stop until their enemy begged for peace. Every human soldier fought with a level of determination that shocked the galaxy. They were not just defending their colonies, they were defending their right to exist after that war. Humanity changed. They became quiet and distant. They withdrew from the council, stopped attending meetings, and closed their trade routes one by one. Their colonies stopped responding to foreign visitors. Soon the space around Earth and its colonies became off limits. No one knew if it was fear, anger, or something else, but humans simply vanished behind their own walls. For centuries, the galaxy carried on without them, and new generations began to forget what humans had once been to the younger races. Humanity was just a legend, a name from history books. A people who had burned too bright and vanished. Some believed they had destroyed themselves. Others thought they had gone into hiding. But some old captains who had lived long enough to remember the war whispered that humanity had not disappeared. They were only watching, waiting for the right time to return. Even after so many years, every time a ship passed near the old human borders, its sensors would go quiet for a few seconds. Instruments would fail, lights would flicker, and then everything would return to normal. The captains would always say it was just an energy field or a malfunction, but deep down, they knew it was something else, something watching them. Once a small cargo ship belonging to a minor species drifted too close to human space and crossed the border by accident. It sent one last message saying that it had detected a massive structure on the other side glowing faintly against the darkness. Then silence followed. No wreckage was ever found. The Galactic Council started to discuss whether to investigate or not, but no one wanted to risk it. The councilors remembered what happened to the last empire that angered humanity, and no one wanted to repeat that mistake yet. Pride is a dangerous thing, and arrogance runs deep among the powerful. Many believed that humans had become weak after centuries of isolation, and that their silence was nothing more than fear. Some began to say that the galaxy had moved on, and that no one should be afraid of ghosts from the past. But the oldest members of the council still remembered what humans were capable of. They remembered the cold, calm voice of a human commander during the Orion War when he said, "We do not start wars, but we finish them." The mystery of human space became a tale told to children across the galaxy. Parents warned their young ones never to stray too close to those coordinates. Old merchants swore that if you looked hard enough from the edge of the forbidden zone, you could see faint lights moving between the stars like ghost ships patrolling an invisible border. Some said they saw ships that had no identifiable energy signatures. Others said they heard a strange, low sound when they passed near human space. a sound that felt like a heartbeat, coming from the void. Over time, curiosity began to build again among the younger races. They had not seen the horrors of war. They had not seen the fleets burned by human fire. They thought the stories were exaggerated. They thought the warnings were ancient myths used to keep them obedient. It was only a matter of time before someone decided to test the truth. But before that day arrived, the humans themselves made their presence known in a way that no one could ignore. One day, without any warning, an ancient human signal appeared on the galactic network. It was a message written in every known language. The message was short. It said, "Do not enter human space. You have been warned." The words were simple, but the timing was terrifying. No one knew where the signal came from. No one could trace it to any source. It seemed to come from everywhere at once, like it was transmitted from the fabric of space itself. The message repeated for 1 full hour across every communication channel, across every system, and then stopped. The council was shaken. Some thought it was a prank. Others thought it was an old automated warning triggered by accident. But deep down they knew the truth. Humans had not vanished. They were still out there, and they still controlled their borders. The most advanced scanners and AI systems tried to find any hint of human presence, but nothing could be found. Not a single trace of a human signal or ship. It was as if they had mastered invisibility. The council held an emergency meeting to discuss the meaning of the message. Should they respond? Should they send diplomats? Should they ignore it? The older counselors begged to leave the humans alone. They said that humanity always meant what they said, and that crossing them again could lead to disaster. But the younger ones, filled with arrogance and pride, said that no one had the right to control so much space and refuse entry to others. They claimed it was against the council's charter, and that someone needed to remind humanity that the galaxy belonged to everyone, not just one race. As debates continued across the stars, every species began to feel an unease spreading through their worlds. The traitors avoided routes near the Forbidden Zone. Military commanders started updating defense plans just in case. And on some planets, the old veterans of the Orion War began to prepare shelters, without even knowing why. Something deep in their instincts told them that change was coming. Something was moving in the shadows beyond the stars. Something human. Even though no one could see them, no one could prove they existed, everyone in the galaxy could feel them watching. They knew that somewhere behind that silent wall, humanity was waiting quietly and patiently, just like they always did, because humans had learned long ago that power does not need to roar. Sometimes silence itself is the loudest warning of all. The Kareth Dominion was known across the galaxy for its pride and for its hunger for control. Their empire had grown through conquest for hundreds of years, and they believed that every system, every world, and every species existed to serve those strong enough to take them. When they heard about the silence of human space, they did not see a warning. They saw weakness to them. The humans were an old race that had hidden themselves away out of fear, and the Kareth leaders believed that fear was something to be exploited. So they called for a great meeting in their war chamber to discuss what they called the human challenge. Their high marshal stood before the council of warlords and spoke of glory and revenge. He said that no species had the right to close their borders to the galaxy, and that the humans were nothing more than an ancient shadow clinging to a forgotten past. The warlords cheered for him, and plans were drawn up to send a fleet into the Forbidden Zone. The fleet was made up of 3 massive carriers and over 50 escort ships, the best in the Dominion's arsenal. Each ship carried elite soldiers and powerful weapon systems. Their engineers believed their technology was unmatched. Their generals believed their discipline was perfect, and their commander believed that they would make history when the day came. The fleet left their homeworld in silence, as billions watched from the ground. The sight of the giant ships leaving orbit filled them with pride. They called it the Expedition of Truth. But in secret, most of the galaxy called it the March of Fools. As the fleet traveled toward the human border, their sensors began to detect strange things, faint signals, faint distortions, like something was there but invisible. The crew laughed it off, calling them old ghost stories. Some of the younger soldiers were nervous. They had grown up hearing the tales of the Orion War. They had been told that humans fought like no other species. They had heard that human soldiers would rather die than surrender, that they were cunning and merciless when provoked. But their commanders told them that those were old myths from a primitive time. They told them that the humans were gone, that their weapons were old, and that their fleets had long turned to dust. They told them that no one could stand against the power of the Dominion. When the fleet reached the edge of human space, they found nothing. No ships, no satellites, no stations, not even debris. The border was silent and dark. The commander ordered the fleet to enter formation and begin a slow advance. Scanners went out in every direction, but there was no sign of movement as they moved deeper. The stars behind them began to fade. Their sensors started showing static. Their communications grew weaker. The crew thought it was interference, but soon their navigators realized something was wrong. They could not map their position. Their computers showed blank space ahead, as if the universe itself had vanished around them. Then suddenly, the sensors came back and showed a single object ahead. It was massive, bigger than any ship they had ever seen. The object was shaped like an enormous black spear floating silently in the void. It had no lights, no visible engines, and yet it moved slowly across their path. Its surface reflected no light. It seemed to absorb it. The commander ordered a scan, but the computers could not process the data. It was like the object was not made of matter at all. The soldiers grew uneasy. Some said it looked alive. Some said it looked like the shape of a shadow given form. Then the commander ordered the fleet to send a signal. They tried every frequency known to the galaxy, but there was no reply after several failed attempts. The commander ordered weapons to be charged. He said that if humans would not speak, then they would listen to force. The fleet prepared for combat. Hundreds of guns powered up across the ship's energy fields hummed. The soldiers moved to their stations ready to fire. Then something strange happened. Every screen, every light, and every sound went out for a single second. When they came back, the black spear was gone, and in its place stood something else, a human ship. It was old but beautiful, covered in strange markings and glowing lines. It looked like a relic from the past, yet it radiated power like a star. The commander stared at it and felt a strange feeling of unease, even though it did not move. It felt alive. It felt like it was watching them. The human ship sent no signal. It made no sound. It simply hovered there, as if waiting for something. The commander ordered his ships to prepare a warning shot. But before he could give the command, every control panel in the fleet froze. The screen showed static, the engines shut down, and every system locked. The crews tried to restart their ships, but nothing worked. One by one, the lights dimmed until only emergency red lights remained on. Then a voice came through the communication channel. It was calm. It was human, and it spoke in perfect Kareth language. It said, "You have crossed into human territory. Turn back now, or you will not return." The commander shouted for the signal to be traced, but the technicians could not find any source. The voice had come from everywhere at once. He ignored the warning and ordered the fleet to fire, but no weapons responded. The human voice spoke again. It said, "This is your only warning." The commander laughed in anger and shouted that the Dominion does not bow to ghosts. The human voice was silent for a moment. Then it said, "Arrogance always has a cost." And the transmission ended in the next moment. A light brighter than any sun filled the darkness. The Kareth fleet's sensors overloaded, and their shields melted away in seconds. It was not an explosion, but something else, a wave of pure energy that swept across space. The human ship remained still at the center of it when the light faded. There was nothing left of the Dominion fleet. Not one ship, not one signal, not even a trace of debris. The area was empty, as if nothing had ever been there. The human ship turned, slowly, and vanished into the darkness, leaving no sign that it had ever existed. Back in the Dominion homeworld, the admirals waited for news. Days passed with no contact, until finally the council received a message. It was short and clear. It said, "Human space is closed, do not enter. You have been warned." The message repeated in every language used in the galaxy, and then it disappeared. Every broadcast system, every network, every terminal carried that same message across thousands of worlds. It echoed through the stars and then fell silent once again. The Kareth Dominion refused to believe it. They claimed it was a lie spread by their enemies. They sent scout probes to investigate, but none returned. Their scientists tried to scan the area, but their equipment failed every time. It was as if the entire region of space was covered by an invisible wall. The Dominion's people began to whisper that their fleet had been erased by human technology, something beyond their understanding. The High Marshal called for vengeance, but even his closest generals hesitated. They remembered the stories, they remembered the history of what had happened when others challenged humanity before. Across the galaxy, the stories spread like wildfire. Every empire, every republic, every small world heard about the disappearance of the Kareth fleet, and the message that followed: traders stopped traveling. Near the Forbidden Zone, colonies near the border began to evacuate their civilians' governments, tightened their defenses. The Galactic Council called for a special meeting, but no one wanted to take responsibility. Everyone feared that any action might draw human attention. Some even said that it was too late, that humanity was awake once more and watching them. The younger races mocked the idea, saying that humans were bluffing. They argued that if humanity was so powerful, they would have returned to the council long ago. They said that no race could stay hidden forever. But the older ones knew better. They had seen what humanity could do. They had seen how far humans would go to protect their own space. They remembered the stories of ships that vanished in silence and soldiers who fought until their last breath. They remembered how humanity had once said that peace was a gift, but war was something they would never lose. Weeks turned into months and no new message came from human space. But something had changed. The border of the Forbidden Zone began to grow. Scanners showed strange distortions in the region, spreading slowly outward as if the very fabric of space was being reshaped. Those who lived near the edge started reporting, seeing lights moving deep in the darkness, like fleets of ships traveling in formation, silent and endless. Some believed it was the return of the human navy. Others thought it was something even more terrifying, a sign that humanity had built something vast, something the galaxy was not meant to see. The Kareth Dominion finally admitted defeat. Their pride was broken. Their empire lost half its influence in less than a year, and their High Marshal vanished from history, his name erased by his own people to hide the shame of his failure. The Galactic Council declared the human sector a restricted zone. Under no circumstances was any ship to enter it again. The message from the humans had been heard and understood. The price of arrogance had been paid in full, and though no one ever saw the human ship again, every being who looked at the dark side of the galaxy knew that it was still out there, silent, patient, and waiting. The destruction of the Kareth fleet shook the entire galaxy. No one could deny it anymore. The humans were real, and they were watching from their silent borders. The message that had followed their disappearance kept echoing in the memories of every leader, every soldier, and every citizen. Human space is closed. Do not enter. You have been warned. It was simple and final, and the way it was delivered terrified even the most powerful civilizations, because it was not a threat. It was a statement of control. The Galactic Council held emergency sessions for months to decide what to do, but no one dared to send another fleet. Every species had seen the recordings. The last signal from the Kareth ship showed that strange flash of light and then nothing. It was not destruction. It was erasure, and that made it even more terrifying. Some believed that the humans had built weapons capable of bending space itself. Others believed that they had transcended physical form, that they had become something beyond flesh and technology. No one knew the truth because no one could even scan inside human space. Every probe, every satellite, and every signal that tried to enter the forbidden region simply vanished as if swallowed by the void. Scientists tried to study the border, but their instruments showed impossible readings. Time and space seemed unstable near the edge, as if reality itself bent away from prying eyes, and so the great empires decided to ignore it, at least on the surface. But deep inside their governments, they began to prepare for the worst. They started developing weapons, building fleets, creating alliances in secret, all in fear of the day humanity might return. Among the smaller species, the story of the Kareth fleet spread like a storm. They spoke of ghosts in the dark and invisible ships that could strike from nowhere. They told stories to their children about the humans who could erase whole fleets with a single thought, but as always, curiosity was stronger than fear. A small exploration group called the Tyrant Collective decided to investigate. They were not soldiers or conquerors. They were scientists and explorers. Their leaders believed that if they could make peaceful contact with the humans, they could unlock the secrets of the past and bring the galaxy together again. They built a small fleet of research ships equipped with the most advanced technology they had and set course for the border of human space. When they arrived, they began to scan the outer regions. They found nothing but silence, just as the Kareth fleet had before. One of the scientists said that the humans might be using cloaking fields or gravity distortions to hide their presence, so they decided to send a probe into the Forbidden Zone. The probe was small, unmanned, and filled with every type of sensor possible. It crossed the border, and for a moment everything seemed normal. Then its signal began to distort. The images it sent back showed darkness and flashes of light like stars moving far too fast. And then the signal was gone. The crew tried to reconnect, but the probe had vanished. Their instruments showed that the probe still existed somewhere, but it was not in their universe anymore. It was like it had slipped into another layer of space. The commander of the Tyrant fleet ordered another probe, but before they could launch it, a voice came through their communication systems. It was clear. "Calm and human. You were told not to come," the voice said. The Tyrant scientists were frozen. No one knew what to say. The voice continued. "This space is not yours to enter. This warning is final." The commander tried to speak to explain that they meant no harm, that they were scientists looking for peace. But the voice interrupted. "Your curiosity will destroy you. Turn back." The transmission ended and the ships began to shake. Their systems went offline one by one. Lights dimmed and screens turned black when they came back on. The ships found themselves far from the border. The stars around them had shifted. Their navigation systems showed that they had been moved thousands of light years away in an instant. No jump, no travel, just displacement. The Tyrant fleet returned home and reported everything. The council listened in silence. The recordings of the human voice were played across the galaxy, and for the first time everyone understood that the humans were not using threats, they were giving chances, because if they wanted to destroy the Tyrant fleet, they could have done it without warning. But instead, they had simply moved them away. That act of power made them even more frightening. It showed control at a level no one had ever imagined. The council decided to officially mark human space as restricted territory, and any species caught entering it would face severe punishment. But even with this new law, curiosity never fully died. Some believed that humans had become protectors of something ancient and powerful hidden within their territory. Years passed and the galaxy learned to live with the silence, but it was not true. Peace merchants still avoided the human border. Military patrols still disappeared. Sometimes sensors near the edge still picked up strange signals, faint whispers of energy unlike anything else. Some claimed to see giant shadows moving. In the darkness, others said they saw lights forming patterns like fleets moving in formation. A few even claimed they heard voices through their communication systems, whispering in human language before cutting off one by one. These events built a legend that became stronger with every generation. The Galactic Council started to lose unity because of the fear. The powerful empires accused each other of hiding alliances with humanity. Some said that humans had chosen a few species to work for them secretly, that they were building something inside their territory with alien help, and that soon they would return to take control of the galaxy. This fear turned old friends into rivals and rivals into enemies. Soon the great peace that had lasted for centuries began to crumble. One empire began to build massive war fleets, another began researching weapons forbidden by the council. They all claimed it was for defense, but deep down everyone knew it was fear of the humans driving them to madness. In the middle of all this chaos, there were a few who remembered the old days before the war, when humans had been explorers, traders, and dreamers. There were still old recordings of human songs and stories spread across the networks. There were still human-built colonies abandoned but standing strong even after centuries without maintenance. And in those places, some people began to wonder if humans were really the monsters the galaxy believed them to be. Maybe they were only protecting themselves. Maybe they had seen too much war, too much betrayal. Maybe they had decided to isolate themselves to prevent history from repeating itself. But even those who thought kindly of them knew that it was impossible to reach them. No one could enter their space. No one could even send a signal through the silence. Then one day, without warning, all communications across the galaxy stopped for exactly 10 seconds. Every network, every system, every transmission went dead, and when they came back, every screen, every console, and every projection showed the same thing. An image of a starfield seen from deep space with one planet glowing faintly in the distance. The image flickered once, and then words appeared across it in every known language: maintain peace, stay away from our world. The message lasted 5 seconds and disappeared, leaving everyone in silence. The scientists confirmed that the signal had not come from any known source. It had not traveled through space. It had simply appeared everywhere at once. The council tried to calm the public, but panic spread quickly. People thought it was the beginning of something greater. Some thought the humans were preparing to attack. Others believed it was a warning that the galaxy was about to face something far worse. Something the humans were preparing to stop. The border of human space started to change again. Sensors picked up massive energy readings. Structures the size of moons began to appear near the outer edge. They were not weapons, but something larger. Entire worlds of metal orbiting in perfect harmony. The readings showed enormous power flows, enough to light 1,000 suns, but no signals came from them. Only silence. The galaxy waited, holding its breath while those silent giants continued to appear. Some thought they were shipyards, others said they were shields, but one thing was clear. Humans were building something that the galaxy could not understand and would never be ready for. The old races remembered the words spoken during the Orion War, when a human admiral had said, "We do not seek conquest. We seek to be left alone. But if you come for us, we will end you." This time, everyone understood that it had never been a threat. It had been a promise, and now, centuries later, that promise still stood unbroken and untouched by time. And the galaxy finally began to understand that humanity's silence was not weakness. It was warning, and their calm was not peace. It was patience, waiting for the day when the stars themselves would need to remember who they had feared the most. The years after the strange message spread across the galaxy were filled with fear and confusion. Governments tried to calm their people, but everyone knew that something was changing and no one could stop it. The image of the glowing planet that had appeared on every screen haunted the minds of the leaders, because deep down, they all knew what it was. It was Earth, the home of humanity, a world no one had seen in centuries, and now it had returned to remind everyone that the humans were still there, and still watching. Some believed that the message was a warning to stay away. Others believed it was a final attempt at peace, but no one dared to test which was true. The Galactic Council grew divided. Some members said they should open communication and send peaceful envoys. Others said they should build weapons and prepare for war, because if humans were rebuilding their power, then the galaxy had little time left. The oldest members, who had lived through the Orion War, said nothing. They only remembered the day when human ships had turned an entire enemy fleet to dust in minutes. And they remembered the quiet, calm voice that had said, "It was never about conquest, it was always about survival." Those words stayed with them because they knew that if humanity had decided to isolate themselves, it was not out of weakness but out of restraint. And if that restraint was breaking, then something terrible was coming. Near the border of human space, strange signals began to appear again. The scanners showed readings that made no sense. Energy waves far stronger than any reactor should have been able to produce, and patterns that repeated, like coded messages, but no one could translate them. A group of independent traders claimed to have seen movement near the edge. They said giant shapes moved between the stars, dark and silent, like shadows gliding through space. When they tried to follow, their navigation systems failed and they barely made it back alive. One of the traders said he had seen something huge, something like a wall of light stretching across the void, but when he blinked it was gone. Soon after that sighting, more reports came in from different sectors, all telling the same story. Some worlds started to panic. They said the humans were coming. Others said that the humans were building a defense against something else, something the galaxy did not yet understand. The scientists tried to study the strange patterns of energy, but every time they got close, their equipment failed or exploded. The readings were too unstable and too powerful to measure. One scientist from the Talar Union claimed that the signals were not random at all, but mathematical patterns repeating with perfect precision. She said it was communication, but on a scale far beyond anything known. The council silenced her, saying that spreading such ideas would cause chaos. But secretly, many of the empires began to investigate on their own, each hoping to learn the secret of human technology. A small empire called the Draven Collective decided to test the border. They were a proud and curious species, known for their advanced machines, and fearless explorers. They sent a single scout ship unmanned and heavily shielded toward human space, they believed. Their technology could handle whatever the humans had created. At first, everything seemed fine. The ship crossed the border and sent back clear readings. Then, without warning, the feed turned to static, and then to darkness. The ship's sensors showed nothing, not even the stars then. For 3 seconds, a single image appeared on the feed. It showed a human figure standing on what looked like the surface of a ship's hull. The figure wore a black suit that reflected no light, and its eyes glowed. Faintly blue behind it was a symbol, the same symbol that once flew above Earth's fleets, the old insignia of the Terran Command. Then, the image vanished, and the signal ended. The council demanded an explanation, but no one had one. The Draven Collective claimed it was a trick and illusion made to scare them, but the fear had already spread across every world again, and everyone knew that the humans had shown themselves for a reason. Maybe it was to remind them that the border still existed. Maybe it was to show that they were not hiding but standing watch, and that thought alone made the galaxy uneasy. No one knew what to do, because any action could be seen as aggression, and any silence could be taken as weakness. So most chose silence, pretending nothing was happening, even though they all knew it was only the calm before the storm. The border of human space began to glow faintly to the scanners. It looked like a curtain of energy surrounding hundreds of star systems. It stretched wider and brighter until it could be seen from neighboring regions like a dim light in the distance. Ships that came too close found their engines shutting down and their systems rebooting with no control. Some pilots swore they heard whispers in their comms, faint human voices saying, "Go back." Others said they saw ghostly ships moving in the light. Some said they saw cities floating among the stars inside the barrier, enormous structures glowing like living machines. But none of it could be recorded because every camera failed the moment it turned toward the light. The people of the galaxy started to believe that humans had become something else, something no longer bound by flesh and metal. They said that their old bodies had evolved into energy, and that their minds had merged with their machines. Some thought it was a lie, some thought it was destiny, but no one dared to find out for sure. The council decided to send one last message toward human space. It was short and respectful. It said, "We do not seek war, we only seek understanding." There was no answer for days, and just when everyone thought the message had been ignored, a single reply came. It said, "You will understand when the time comes." And that was all. That message was the beginning of the greatest fear the galaxy had ever known, because after it came strange events across many systems. Planets that had been peaceful for centuries began to suffer sudden blackouts. Entire networks went offline and came back with missing data. Starships malfunctioned in deep space and found themselves hundreds of light years away, as if they had been moved by unseen hands. No one could explain it. But every time it happened, the readings showed faint traces of energy identical to the signals. Found at the human border, some began to whisper that the humans were testing something, that they were preparing for something enormous. Some said it was a weapon. Others said it was a shield in a distant system near the edge of the galaxy. A mining station picked up a transmission that repeated every hour for 2 days. The message was faint and broken, but it was clearly human. The words said, "They are coming. Be ready." The workers did not understand who was coming, but they sent the message to the council, which decided to hide it from the public. They feared that panic would spread and that the fragile peace would finally break. But it was already too late. The people of the galaxy had started to prepare for the unknown. Governments built bunkers and hidden fleets were moved into position, all waiting for a threat they could not see. While deep within human space, the lights continued to grow stronger. Then one night across the stars, the impossible happened. The light barrier surrounding human space expanded. It moved slowly but endlessly. swallowing systems of empty space without touching any other inhabited worlds. Scanners across the galaxy lit up with warnings, as energy readings rose higher than anything recorded before. Every empire sent out fleets to monitor it, but none dared to get too close. The expansion stopped after a few days, and for a moment everything was silent. Then a sound echoed through the void, a signal heard in every system. It was a single tone followed by a voice. It was calm, steady, and unmistakably human. It said, "We warned you once, do not test us again." After that, the galaxy changed. No one dared to speak of invasion or exploration anymore. Every race turned inward, focusing on survival and defense. Trade routes near human space were shut down, and colonies within reach of the border were abandoned. The Galactic Council tried to keep unity, but fear broke them apart, because they all knew now that humanity was awake again, and that they had power. Beyond imagination, they had built something inside their territory, something that could bend space and move fleets with ease, something that could speak to every world at once. No one knew what it was, but they all understood the message behind it. The silence that followed was deeper than before the humans had spoken again, and that was enough to remind everyone that their patience had limits. The lesson of arrogance had been taught once more, and the galaxy would never forget it. Ships that once roamed freely now avoided the human stars. Planets that once dreamed of expansion now prayed to be left alone. The humans had not attacked, they had not destroyed, but they had shown what they could do if provoked. And that was enough, because everyone knew that in the center of that glowing void the humans were watching still, and they would never allow the galaxy to forget the cost of arrogance. For many years after the warning, the galaxy lived in silence. No one dared to cross the border of human space. No one dared to speak of humans except in whispers. The name of Earth became something holy and feared at the same time. Every race knew that the humans were watching, and that was enough to keep them from making any mistakes again. But fear has a way of growing into doubt, and doubt has a way of becoming curiosity. And soon some races began to wonder if the humans were really as powerful as they seemed. They wondered if the warning had only been a bluff to keep the galaxy away, and slowly, quietly, plans began to form to test the truth. The first to act were the Volari syndicates, a collection of powerful industrial worlds that lived on the edge of the frontier. They believed in profit and control, more than peace, and they had always seen humans as competition. When the humans disappeared, they took their trade routes and resources. Now they wanted to take back the fear that kept them small. They built a fleet of invisible drones using the most advanced cloaking systems in the galaxy and sent them toward human space. The drones were small and fast, designed to scan and map without being seen for weeks. They drifted through the void, sending back data. Nothing happened, and the Volari leaders began to believe their plan had worked. They laughed and said that humans were just hiding behind empty light. But one day all the drones went silent at the same time. Their signals ended mid-transmission. No explosion, no distortion, just gone. The Volari tried to recall them, but nothing returned then. A few days later, every communications channel across their systems turned black. Screens lit up with a single line of text, written in ancient human script. It said, "Your greed blinds you again." Then every system went offline for exactly 7 minutes. When they came back, all the data from the drones was gone, and every star map that had included human space was blank, as if the region had never existed at all. After that, the Volari stopped speaking of the humans completely. The council met in secret to discuss what had happened, but none of them could agree. Some said that the humans were simply defending themselves. Others said they were manipulating the galaxy from the shadows, but no one dared to contact them again. The memories of the last warning were still too strong, and everyone remembered the calm human voice that had spoken across the stars, still even in fear. There were those who could not let go of their pride. The younger leaders of several empires began to say that fear of the humans kept the galaxy weak. They argued that it was time to reclaim their freedom to explore, to expand, to prove that the galaxy could stand on its own again. One of those young leaders was Admiral Thalen of the Soren Dominion. He was bold and ambitious, and he believed that no one should bow to ghosts. He gathered a fleet under the excuse of a deep space training mission. But his real goal was to approach the border of human space and see with his own eyes what was inside his fleet was one of the strongest ever built, made of ships that carried the latest energy shields and rail cannons. They moved carefully through the dark between the stars, guided by coordinates that few dared to even look at. When they reached the edge of the human light, they stopped. Every sensor was active, but the readings made no sense. It was like the space itself was alive, moving, breathing, changing shape. They tried to scan deeper, but their computers froze. Then one of the crew saw something. At first it looked like a reflection in the dark. Then it became clear it was a shape larger than any ship they had ever seen. It glided through the void without sound, its hull smooth and black with no visible engines, and yet it moved with purpose. Lights flickered along its surface like stars trapped inside glass. The ship turned slowly until its front faced the fleet, and a deep vibration shook the space around them. Their scanners read nothing, and then every ship received a single transmission. It was an image of Earth shining bright and whole, and beneath it words appeared. "You have crossed too far, turn back or vanish." Thalen hesitated. He thought it was a trick. He ordered his fleet to advance. The moment they moved, all power in his flagship died. The engines stopped. The lights went out and the stars outside began to distort. The crew screamed as the darkness swallowed them. Days later, only one ship was found drifting back on the edge of Dominion space. It was empty. No crew, no power, no records. Just a single message burned into the metal of its hull. It said, "We warned you." The council hid the truth again, saying it was a failed experiment. But whispers spread quickly. The humans had taken another fleet, and now everyone knew that no one could challenge them. The galaxy grew quiet once more. In the silence, something else began to happen. The energy barrier around human space started to pulse. At first it was slow, then faster, until it became a rhythm, like a heartbeat. It sent waves of energy across the stars, not destructive but powerful enough to reach every world. Scientists tried to study it, but the data was beyond comprehension. It carried patterns that changed faster than any machine could record. Some said it was communication. Others said it was an awakening. The humans were not hiding. They were preparing something vast and unstoppable. In remote systems, strange phenomena began to occur. Planets that had long been barren suddenly showed signs of life. Ancient ruins started to glow with power no one could explain. And in some places, people claimed to see human figures walking in the distance, only for them to vanish like smoke. Entire colonies reported hearing soft voices in their comms, whispering warnings about storms and disasters that later came true. It was as if the humans were guiding them from the shadows, protecting them in ways that defied reason. Even those who once feared them began to see them differently. Some called them guardians. Others called them gods. But the truth was that no one understood what the humans had become. Deep inside human space, something massive was being built. Fleets of machines moved silently between stars, connecting enormous structures that glowed blue and silver. From afar they looked like cities, but they were not cities. They were engines of some kind, devices that bent light and gravity at will. The humans had mastered technology that made the rest of the galaxy look primitive, and with each pulse from the barrier, their creation grew larger until it spanned dozens of systems. The few signals that escaped spoke of something called the Ark. Not a weapon, not a ship, but something greater. Something meant to move worlds themselves. The council watched in fear and wonder, unable to do anything. They knew that the humans could destroy them at any time. But they did not attack. They simply built and waited, and that was what scared the galaxy the most. The idea that humans had a plan, and that no one could guess what it was. Some races began to hope that whatever they were building would bring peace. Others feared it would bring the end of everything. Then one night, without warning, the pulses stopped. The light of the barrier dimmed for the first time in years. The stars beyond human space became visible again. Every sensor in the galaxy turned toward it. Waiting, nothing happened for hours. Then a single beam of light burst from the center. It was brighter than any sun and reached across the galaxy. It did not burn. It did not destroy. It simply passed through everything, leaving behind silence. Then a message followed, in the same calm human voice. It said, "We have finished our work. Remember what we taught you?" Then the light faded and the barrier disappeared completely. For days no one could believe it had happened. Some thought the humans had finally left others, thought they had moved beyond the galaxy itself. But when probes were sent toward the empty region, they found something unbelievable. Where human space had once been, there was now a vast empty sphere of stars all orbiting around a single bright core that pulsed slowly like a living heart. The probes that entered never came back, and the readings showed that the energy inside was unlike anything known. It was as if the humans had transformed their entire territory into something new, something alive and eternal. The galaxy fell silent again. Not from fear this time, but from awe, because the humans had done something no one else could even imagine. They had taken their world and their people and turned them into something beyond understanding, leaving behind only a message and a memory. The council declared the area sacred and forbade any ship from entering. But they all knew the truth. Humans were still there somewhere within that shining core, watching, waiting, maybe guiding them still. And the galaxy would never be the same again, because everyone knew that the humans had not disappeared. They had ascended, and the universe would always remember the warning that came before the light long. After the light faded from the skies, the galaxy lived in quiet wonder. No one dared to disturb the space where humans once lived, the place that was now called the Heart of Stars. Every race respected the invisible line that marked the border around it, and even the bravest captains refused to go near the shining sphere that floated in the center of the void. But the stories never stopped spreading across the stars. People spoke of what the humans had done, how they had built something that was beyond the understanding of every mind in the galaxy. Some said the humans had turned themselves into light. Others said they had become pure energy. Some said they had become the stars themselves and were now part of the universe. In the centuries that followed, the galaxy changed quietly. The wars that had once filled the skies began to fade. Trade between species grew, and peace returned, little by little, because no one wanted to repeat the arrogance that had brought fear to their hearts. Everyone remembered the humans and the lesson they had taught without firing a single shot. The humans had shown the cost of arrogance, the cost of believing that power made one greater than others. And though no one saw them again, their presence was still felt in every decision made by the council, in every law written, and in every dream of peace. The new generations were born long after the humans vanished, but even they grew up hearing the old stories told by their elders in soft voices. The story of the Death World people who rose to the stars and changed the galaxy forever. The story of the war that ended when humans said enough. The story of the warning that came through every channel in every language: do not enter human space. You have been warned. The children listened with wide eyes and asked if the humans would ever come back, and the elders always said the same thing. Maybe they never left. One day, a small research ship belonging to the Arathi Collective was exploring near the outer edges of the Heart of Stars. They were young scientists full of curiosity and dreams. They wanted to understand the strange energy that surrounded the shining core. For years they had studied it from afar, and every reading told them the same thing. The energy was alive, not in the way that creatures are alive, but like a heartbeat that never stopped, as if the entire sphere was breathing. They decided to send a small probe closer than anyone had dared before. The probe was fast, and light made only to observe without touching. They launched it and watched the readings come in for hours. Nothing happened. Then the probe sent back something that no one expected. The image was clear and impossible to mistake. It was a city floating in light, made of towers that rose like glass mountains and rivers of silver that flowed between them. Thousands of lights moved through the air like stars, in motion, and in the center was a great symbol carved in glowing metal, the same symbol that once marked the flags of Earth. The scientists could not believe what they saw. They thought it was an illusion or a reflection, but the image repeated again. And again the probe continued to transmit until a soft voice came through the static. A calm human voice that said, "You still seek to understand what cannot be measured." Then the signal cut off completely. The probe vanished, and the ship lost contact. The crew returned home shaken. They told the council what they had seen, but the council kept it secret. They feared that the knowledge would bring chaos again, but secrets never last forever. Soon the story leaked, and the galaxy was filled with hope. Once more, everyone wanted to know what the humans were doing inside the light. Were they alive? Were they watching? Were they waiting for something no one knew for sure? But the stories returned stronger than before. Across the galaxy, strange changes began to appear once again on distant worlds. Small unknown machines were found buried deep under the soil, machines made of human design. They were old, but still active, and they glowed softly when touched every time. One of those machines was activated. It began to heal the land around it, turning deserts into green valleys and frozen lands into warm fields. Scientists studied them, but no one could understand how they worked. All they knew was that they carried the same energy signature as the heart of stars. The council finally gathered for the first full assembly in centuries. They spoke of the signs, the light, the machines, and the voice, and they began to realize something that humans had not left anything to chance. They had left behind a message hidden in the energy itself. When the readings were analyzed deeply, a pattern appeared, one that matched human language, but not in words, rather in rhythm and pulse. The message said, "We will not rule you. We will not destroy you. We will only remind you what you can become." The meaning was simple: humans had not vanished. They had simply evolved into something greater. But they had left behind their wisdom for others to learn from. Years passed, and the galaxy entered an age of peace unlike any before. Technology advanced faster than ever. New ships were built, new worlds were explored, but all of it was done with care and respect for the balance of life, because the memory of humanity still lingered like a quiet guardian in the back of every mind. It became a saying among the young. When someone grew too proud, others would remind them, "Remember the humans," and that was enough to make them pause. On one quiet day, a strange event happened across the stars. Every communication device, every beacon, every light across the galaxy flickered for a few seconds and then went still. After a moment, a soft light spread across the sky on every world, and every being could see it, whether they were in space or on the ground. It was a wave of light traveling from the heart of stars across the galaxy, and within that light were images, memories of humanity, their history, their struggles, their kindness, their wars, and their final transformation. Everyone saw the same thing: the story of a small species that rose from dust and pain and learned to stand among the stars. The voice returned one last time, calm and full of warmth. It said, "We are always with you. Now the choice is yours to build or to fall." Then the light faded once again. After that day, no one ever saw or heard from the humans again, but their presence remained everywhere. In small ways, crops grew stronger, weather became calm, old engines worked more efficiently, and no one could explain why. It was as if the entire galaxy was being gently guided by invisible hands. The council declared the heart of stars as protected space. No ship, no probe, no traveler would ever enter it again. It became a symbol of peace and unity, a reminder that strength was not in domination, but in understanding and patience. The years became centuries, and the centuries became millennia. Civilizations rose and fell. New species evolved and old ones vanished. But the legend of humanity never died. It was told in stories, songs, and art across every corner of the galaxy. Some believed the humans had become the architects of the universe itself, shaping the flow of energy and time. Others believed they had merged with the stars and now lived forever among them. Some even claimed to hear voices in their dreams, voices that told them to keep moving forward, to never give up. And somewhere in the middle of the galaxy, the heart of stars still pulsed with quiet light. Every beat a reminder of what once was and what could still be. In that eternal glow, the humans watched in silence, their work complete, their purpose fulfilled. They had shown the galaxy the truth that even the smallest and most fragile beings could rise beyond their limits, that the cost of arrogance was destruction, but the reward of understanding was peace. And though no one could see them, their legacy lived forever among the stars, carried in the hearts of every being that looked up into the sky and wondered what it meant to be truly human.